All right. Good afternoon, Ms. Camille.
Hello.
We're back again.
Yes.
So I am excited to kind of meet with you. We have some great things to talk about in relation to this. This will be considered our weekly data meeting, where we are going to look at our most recent interim assessment and talk about just our strengths and some of our growth areas and then action steps moving forward to really just improve student performance on the whole. And so just kind of starting out, I have kind of a memo for you that really looks at our most recent NWEA. And so kind of going in as we move from establishing culture and classroom management into academic instruction, I'm eager to continue working with you to ensure that we use the results from our most recent interim assessments to generate high leverage actions that improve teaching and learning. In an effort to be both transparent and to ensure our team is aligned on our priorities, this memo summarizes our network team's analysis of our high school interim assessment results and names key actions we will take in order to collectively move our high school to the next level. And this will talk about high level trends and key takeaways across our kind of secondary network, which is right now one school. So we definitely have a lot of opportunity with kind of our small school space here to really make a lot of gains. We'll also talk a lot about our key student learning gaps, gaps in instructional practice that might have led to some of these outcomes. And then what you'll do as a school leader to kind of address these gaps, and what I will do in my role to support you as well. So just kind of starting off, just looking at the data, what jumps out at you? What do you see?
Well, I do see that we're making about a 5% gain in meeting ELA from last year to this year, or a 4% gain. Gotta do math better. A 4% growth, and I am very impressed with our 11% growth in math from last year to this year. So it appears that we're doing what we need to do throughout school-wide.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I also noticed that in 11th grade we went down by 8 points, while in math we went up by 14. So I'm already kind of seeing that perhaps we're starting to see some growth and some areas of need.
Awesome. And yes, I was kind of looking at, we absolutely grew in kind of both areas of English language arts and math. But then when you start to break down this by grade level, you start to see where we did make some improvements in 9th and 10th grade. I think 11th grade ELA saw a bit of a decline for various reasons. But I think also what kind of jumped out at me was our 9th grade, where we only kind of grew 1 percentage point. And I think this is, being a STEAM school, a target area for us, because we just want to make sure our students have really a fundamental grounding in math, especially as freshmen, since we know they're going to be taking rigorous math courses leading up to hopefully a college course their senior year when they look at intermediate algebra and statistics. So I think your takeaways kind of align with mine. Is if we kind of move down and looking at these high level trends and key takeaways, we notice we do definitely have bright spots. It made growth in ELA and math in 9th and 10th grade. So big shout out to you and all that you've done to just make sure our teachers have all that they need to be successful. And also highlighting you as a classroom teacher with those with our juniors. But we did see that slight decline in English, but definitely that 14 percentage point increase in math for 11th graders. So
and 19 and 10th, which is just outstanding.
Phenomenal. So shout out Spirit Sprinkles. We highlighted those students who were actually performing in the 90th percentile yesterday. We also really went over exactly what that the NWA means when we look at their RIT score, and also their percentile score. Knowing their RIT score is really a measure of growth over time. Similar like you measure height over time, we're measuring their academic proficiency over time, knowing they take this test periodically, normally 3 times per year. And then that percentile score, how well did you do in comparison to all the other scholars within your grade level that took that assessment. Definitely saw some great things with our 9th and 10th and 11th grades, but we're always trying to get better faster. And so I want to kind of look at some of the gaps and see. Looks like we want to focus, kind of really zoom in on 11th grade English, since we did see a decline, and also 9th grade math, because we didn't necessarily see as much of a gain as we saw in some of our other grade levels. So I believe, looking at mathematics, we know we are assessed in 4 key areas. When we look at operations and algebraic thinking, real and complex number systems, geometry, statistics and probability. And then in English, when we're kind of looking at target areas for 11th graders, we're looking at literature, informational text, and vocabulary acquisition and usage as kind of our framework to really build some reteach lessons in order to make sure by the time we assess students again in, let's say, late February, early March, we've kind of closed those gaps so we can see that increased performance in our next interim, holding constant that the students, our juniors especially, take their ACT this year in March, and also their summative SBAC assessment in May. So just thinking, let's start with just positive outliers. What do you think led to us achieving this growth within ELA and math, minus some of the gap areas?
Overall growth. Well, I think with the sophomores and the juniors, if we look at them specifically, they in math specifically, they've had, and in English too, they've had strong teachers from year to year, both their freshman year and the sophomore year, and with our juniors, freshman, sophomore, and now junior year. Yes, we lost Mr. Chango, but Gladding came and took his place, and she's a very strong math teacher. So having her work with those sophomores and those juniors just kept that level of expectation high, and also the level of instruction at that quality level. So I think that we're seeing the outcome of what that high level project-based open source curriculum can really allow our math classes to do.
I agree.
In ELA, I think that, generally speaking, we're teaching literature, we're teaching informational text, and they have weekly vocab, and we saw the vocab when we broke it down, we did see a growth in vocab, and I was really excited to see that, because it proves that system of those weekly vocab quizzes is really paying off. The kids are building, their vocab bank from 9th grade. Every Friday they have a test. 10th grade, every Friday they have a test. 11th grade, every Friday they have a test. They're building that over time, which should help with the reading and also understanding information.
If you could prioritize that framework, literature, informational text, vocabulary acquisition and usage, what would be kind of our strongest area leading to our weakest area?
It's hard to say because every kid is a little bit different. I honestly think that abstract elements in literature is the most challenging for kids. And the fact of reading a book from beginning to end is also a big challenge for kids. Sticking with what you started with. And I think that's part of the reason that I teach novels, is because we're going to, start what we finished.
Right.
But it becomes a challenge. And I think with ELA, and this is just from what I heard from my juniors, one student in particular she was talking to me about how much she gets from our Socratic seminars.
Mm-hmm.
And she was saying it as a positive, and she was saying, I get so much, I don't always read, but after hearing the discussion, I feel like I can really jump in the discussion and add something from what I did read. And it was cool because it's saying how much our class is working together as a group to build each other's knowledge and bring each other up. And that's wonderful, except for the fact that, I brought it back to saying, well, if you had read everything, what could you then have gained? And then, with the informational text, the hard part about that, I think, is that a lot of kids finding the details that matter versus just details. Mm-hmm. And we did some practice. We talked about an informational text today, and we are we're focusing a lot on character motivations. That's one of the skills that we're focusing on, and then how to find support for those character motivations in the text. And so we did that literature thing, but we did it with an informational text. Okay. So we looked at who our characters were and asked for details, and a lot of the kids were giving all these details from the article that had nothing to do with the main idea.
Right.
So I kept saying, no, that is a detail, that is something we learned, but how does that connect to the main idea? How does it connect to the main idea?
Okay. So I want to kind of go dig a little deeper.
Yeah,
And one of our action steps has to do with some of our bubble students within 9th through 11th grade.
Okay.
And I wanted to just kind of take a look at the 11th graders.
Okay.
We have that are pretty much on the bubble.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the proverbial bubble. And the bubble is knowing that students performing the 60th percentile have the propensity to score a proficient or advanced score with their upcoming SBAC. And so we're taking a look at students who didn't necessarily perform at the 60th percentile. They're right at the cusp. They're at about 45 to 49%. And I wanted to kind of look at, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Are there any trends that you see between these 4 students that I've dotted in relation to what performance goal area that might have struggled in or might
Do you
be
mind if I highlight them across? Okay.
Please.
Way easier to see. Okay. So looking at this data, I see that mixed bag. It looks like most of them, 3 of them are scoring high and 1 of them is scoring average on the informational texts. Mm-hmm. We have about 50-50 on the literature, so to me it looks like vocab acquisition. Because I have 2 averages and 2 low averages.
Okay. All right.
But it also, I think we could work on information too, since I have low average and average, and then I have 2 with high.
Okay.
But I'm thinking.
So if you were to prioritize,
if I had approach one to get them up above the bubble.
Right. What would you focus on first?
Maybe informational text, since we're all.
Excuse me. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. I don't know, would it be better to focus on where they're doing well on and push them towards doing even better on a skill that they're doing well, or would it be better to push them on a skill that they're struggling with?
Well, I'm thinking about overall proficiency. If they're kind of displaying proficiency in one area, I think what we're doing is already working.
Okay.
And it's just like, okay, we're in our gap areas. What can we change or modify to keep pushing this? So I would really focus on the areas of struggle. It looks like we kind of tie
between vocab and literature.
Okay, I'm just going to highlight those here.
Yeah, vocab's a little lower. But, if you can't get the vocab, that might be why they're struggling with all the other stuff in some way.
Okay, literature. Okay, just gonna highlight those. All right. Okay. And then I'm gonna keep us grounded in ELA
Okay.
and math.
Okay.
But really, there's some things logistically that we can do in math that I think is going to really take us to the next level. And I know you have lended some strong assistance in hiring a strong math instructor, knowing in our lower level math classes of pre-algebra and algebra 1, we've had a long-term sub.
Yeah.
And so I think what my action step for you will be, once this math instructor is cleared, I want you to do 2 things with them. One, and if you could write this down, that'd be great. I want it. Excuse me. Let me go down here. I would like to. First of all, nothing starts without culture, right? We have to set the tone for learning in the classroom. And so I want you to lead an adult culture professional development that focuses on student behavioral expectations within the classroom. And you know what, actually, if you see here, you go down to school leader action steps,
Yep.
you can see them there. So you might just highlight or put a note.
Oh, okay.
I'm literally going down the line. Here you go.
Okay.
And we're going to redesign our lesson plans. Excuse me. Focusing back on math.
Yep.
We're going to provide that professional development, knowing we have our adult culture PD, focusing on loud and proud voice, straight vertical arm, complete sentences, 100% tracking of the speaker, 100% on-task behavior, proper first 5-minute routine. And then in addition, I need you to provide our new math instructor, and this will be our current English teachers when we start. We'll talk about that when we get to English. Time to modify their current curriculum based on gaps in the following areas. When we look at operations of algebraic thinking, real and complex number systems, geometry, statistics, and probability. Once we're able to really look at our current Algebra 1 and pre-algebra curriculum, that's where I think having a specialist, so to speak, in the room, right? Where, our long-term sub was great, but I think we kind of had to provide supplemental material through project-based learning with the business plan. Now we can actually really get into the content of our OpenStax curriculum and really allow the instructor to kind of give us feedback in conjunction with our director of curriculum instruction, just to make sure we're on the right track, because we just know there's a gap, right?
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to do for our math instructor, and it's really, my action step, I will definitely provide budgeted, we'll make sure I'll budget additional time for our current long-term stuff to stay in the classroom.
Okay.
So not only can our new instructor shadow in the classroom, but they can also get some time to actually look at our current curriculum, look at our current lesson plans, and really modify them to make sure we're providing effective instruction. So moving back to ELA, now that what we need to do, I believe, for our 11th graders, actually, let me take a step back. Once we are able to look at the lesson plans, another action step, we're going to start to provide 2 summative test bank questions. So each day, normally during their due now, scholars will be able to practice questions that they could potentially see on their summative assessment. So that's going to go for ELA and math across the board.
Mm-hmm.
But specifically, we really want to target that bubble group, because we know if we can get those particular students across the threshold of proficiency, that will allow us to now really target some of our other students along the way until all of our students are performing proficiently or advanced.
Yeah.
So just kind of, what do you think are some resources that we could utilize to really formulate some of these test bank questions?
I know that I generally, ACT has open-ended questions and SAT as well, where you can go to their site and they have like previous sample tests. So that would be a real quick and easy, yes, we can do that. And then I know that we have, when we did the practice ACT test, when the booklets came in, I grabbed one of those because I like to use those for this. So I do have that.
Okay.
That we can start using those ACT questions. I think also another place to go would be maybe College Board as well, because they have some test prep with SAT that goes a little bit deeper. So those would be my two places: the ACT actual book that I have, and I would just, like you said, I would project it on the screen, and it'd be closed choice. You just kind of like, everyone kind of takes their little quiz, and then we can talk about our answers and figure out the right answer and really work our way through the right answer. And then I would also provide some time to talk about why the wrong answers are wrong.
And I want to make sure you keep your principal hat on.
Yeah.
Where this is something you're
going
to coach.
Okay.
You're going to coach your teachers.
Sorry, totally different.
Right?
Yeah.
And I know you teach a section of English 11, but we're going to talk about English 9, English 10, pre-algebra, algebra 1. That's going to be, how do we expose our teachers to this these resources. And so I think what my action step for you to be is, go in and read the lesson plan to include these 2 sample summative assessment questions, but making sure that as a school leader, you're kind of making sure that the questions are standards based and they fall in line to those key goal areas.
Yeah.
I think that'll be your goal as they kind of provide that feedback to you.
So what I would do is I would do closed choice, where I would say to the teachers, hey, here are 6 resources that you can use these resources to pull the questions. And what I might even do, depending on the teacher's experience or the teacher's comfort level, I might even say, hey, listen, I pulled these 10, use these 10 for the next 2 weeks, 1 every day.
Right.
For the next 2 weeks,
right.
You're set, you have these. And then while you already have these 10, so your 2 weeks are good, you can start looking for other questions from the bank that I gave you to add into your lesson plans.
Okay. And then I think what's going to be key is being able to reflect to see who's answering the question proficiently over an extended amount of time, so we know the conceptualized understanding. And then really continuing to work with your teachers to identify, okay, who still has gaps, so we can see what we need to continue to do.
And what we could do is use Illuminate for that as well. So if we have those daily do-nows on Illuminate, where we have, 9th grade questions, and it just might take some teamwork of uploading those questions, but then we'll have them for forever, right? So every year, 9th grade will have their SBAC prep questions, ACT prep questions. 10th grade will have theirs. And we could just work with just building up those skills, easiest to hardest questions.
And then
the data would be really easy to collect, because you have your kids, log on to their Chromebooks, they take their little do now, or if you don't want to use the Chromebooks, you just get a little Illuminate bubble sheet, scan those in, and now we have a school-wide collective data resource to see where those kids are going.
And then our kind of hardline assessment, when we look at our next NWA round, and then look at those results to see if this is working. Where these students lie, because we have the data where they're at now.
Yeah, and then if we see with the practice tests that they're doing really well, but then their NWEA data is really low, now we can start to be like, oh, this is a kid who's not doing their best on NWEA, not taking it seriously, versus, oh, they really need more time. They really don't understand this concept. Because even looking at some of this bubble group, I'm like, but you don't do this, and I know you don't do this because I'm your teacher.
Right.
But if you did it, you do well. And so that does not promote growth. Right. So you need to have other tools.
All right. Awesome. So we're going to go in, definitely make sure our new instructor is trained up in all of our settings home for learning culture pieces. Also giving them time to really build relationships with the students, gain any information that he needs from the long-term setup that's been put in place, and then really looking at across our English department and our math department and working with your teachers to make sure they are adding these two summative item bank questions to add to their lesson that they can go over, so students have practice in real time going over some of these questions that they'll be exposed to on the NWEA, SBAC, ACT, SAT, and things of that nature. So this is a great practice. This is something I used to do working as a dean of students with our Algebra 1 instructor back at PS7 when I was overseeing middle school, and we just saw our results just increase so much just based on the fact that students were, even if they didn't know how to answer the question correctly, they had strategies that could give them tools to get there, even if they might have some points of confusion. And so, awesome. I think we're covered. So we covered our culture training for our new math instructor. We're looking at to expose our students to test questions on a more consistent basis, looking at 1 to 2 per day. You'll be working with your current math and English instructors to make sure they're adding that to their curriculum. We'll take a look at their initial responses to see what students are progressing within the question that they're exposed to, but more so, we'll look to see if this manifests itself in the next round of the NWA, round 2. And so, what I'll be doing on the back end to support you, I'll definitely coordinate a meeting with our new math instructor and our representatives from Cal Poly,
cool.
just to make sure we're maintaining that level of rigor that gets students Cal Poly ready. I'll provide budgeted curriculum development time so our teacher and as well as you can reassess the rigor in pre-algebra and algebra 1. I'll also, just kind of on a side note, be coordinating AVID training so that our math instructor is also implementing the AVID strategies. I know we just recently had a PD, a whole staff PD. This, sorry, might not be able to hold this training until summer because some of the the school year opportunities are pretty much dried up. And then we will still continue to check in periodically. I think our next check-in will be, we'll go in 2 weeks.
Okay.
And we'll just start to take a look at specific grades within math and English, just to make sure students have everything that they need to be successful as we close out the semester. So we just have various checkpoints when we're looking at student grades, we're looking at student test scores to make sure they're on track to proficiency and mastery. So
that sounds
all right. Well, thank you. I have some additional items here that you can take a look at that actually breaks down where each scholar actually lied within each goal area of when we're looking at literature, informational text,
very exciting,
and vocabulary acquisition and usage, so we know just who those students are. I also have here just a real breakdown in our NWA scores compared to other sites within our system. And then also just what exactly where they performed on the low, average, or high scale when we look at math and reading. So just have some of these resources so we can know exactly who these scholars are and looking at our low, middle, and high performances. Okay?
Awesome. Thank you.
So, all right. Thank you. So we'll talk very soon.